Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to bring you another pick and prediction video. We're talking quarterfinal round of the CFP. We have the first video of the quarterfinal round. Miami, Ohio State in Jerry's World, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, New Year's Eve. You guys saw my videos last week for the first round. Went 2-2. Should have went 3-1. Oregon, Dante Moore, interceptions at the goal line, up 48-13 and don't cover. Let's not talk about it. Anyways, going to this, the Buckeyes are 10-point favorites. Have seen this going down to 9.5, though it might creep back up to 10 on game day, so look out for that. Canes got here based off of going on the road and beating Texas A&M last week 10-3 in an absolute snooze fest or a defensive slugfest, depending on how you want to look at it, right? But I thought Miami outplayed them for the most part. Aggies really didn't get anything going to that last drive. Ohio State gets here, defending national champs, opened the year with a big home win against Texas Longhorns. Pretty much kind of ran through the Big Ten, kind of coasted through the Big Ten for the most part. Get to the Big Ten championship game, lose to Indiana, but still came into the CFP as the number 2 seed. You could make an argument, though, this is probably going to be their only big test outside of Indiana this season, if you want to count the opener against Texas as well, though. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into the matchup analyses for both these teams. We'll start looking at the Miami offense versus the Ohio State defense. So, a big factor in this game to me is going to be the Ohio State's pass rush. Can they get to Carson Beck? Ohio State's pass rush this season, 19% sack rate. That's 16th in FBS. Against top protection units they faced this year, though, 37% pressure rate, which is kind of what they were overall for the season. Sack rates dipped down to 7.9% sack rate. So obviously, the better teams, it's not as easy to rush the passer against them. These are just kind of ho hum numbers for Ohio State in those games. Going against the Miami offensive line, this is the number 1 pass protection unit in the country. Could be because of Carson Beck getting the ball out fast, right? He throws a lot of short passes. That is true. But also, that offensive line is very good. Has kept them upright for the majority of this season. So, this is going to be a big test for Ohio State's pass rush going against an offensive line like this. I don't think they've gone against an offensive line this good all season. Going into that, Carson, as I said about Carson Beck, he's a veteran quarterback, big game experience. He played at Georgia, was in a ton of big games. This isn't going to be a is this moment too big for me kind of thing for Carson Beck. Now he is going against an elite defense. This is the best defense he's faced all year. They couldn't make the argument they're the best defense in the country. They're number 1 in the season in points per game allowed at 8.2 points per game. 5.2 yards per attempt allowed per game. That's number 1 in the country and top 3 in the country at limiting explosive pass plays. And my explosive pass plays isn't really Miami's game either. It's really Carson Beck has an average depth of target, I believe, of 7.2. It's very low ranking. It's a lot of Malachi Tony, go get a lot of yak. Some of these other receivers go get a lot of yak. And that's really how Miami's offense has been making hay this season as far as the pass game goes. And then finally, the run game matchup. How does that rank up? Miami's running game to me is just Mark Fletcher, right? There's nothing really behind him. I think Mark Fletcher's a good back, but overall on the season as a team, 4.3 yards per carry, that's not really going to do it. And everything is on Mark Fletcher. If he's not getting anything going on the ground, you could forget about the other guys. They're not going to in this moment in this game against this team. They're not going to get anything going. So it's Mark Fletcher a bust on that end. Ohio State, what they're going against, they've allowed 2.8 yards per carry. It's outstanding. But when you look at Ohio State, similar when you look at some of these other Big Ten teams, you got to think about their schedule, right? There was a lot of, let's call it what it is, a lot of garbage in the Big Ten this year that some of these top teams in that conference kind of stat padded against. When you look at Ohio State, what they did against their tougher competition, and what I mean by that is the better rushing attacks that they faced, that yard per carry average jumps up to 4.2 to 4.5. Miami's more in that ballpark of those better rushing attacks they're going to face. So in this game, you might be surprised to see Mark Fletcher get a little bit going on the ground in this one. All right, going on to the flip side of that, Miami's defense against Ohio State's offense. Julian saying, can Miami pressure him? And even if they pressure him, will it matter? Julian Sain has top-ranked efficiency pass metrics across the board. But one thing I want to note also is that under pressure, he's number 1 in the country in EPA under pressure this season. Miami, they got the best DN duo in the country. Been saying it since the beginning of the year. Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, 2 NFL guys, probably 2 first-round NFL guys, with one of those guys probably going in the top 5. third in pressure rate at 42% in the country, 14th in sack rate. So this is a big test for Ohio State's offensive line. Can they keep staying upright? And when he is, he's going to get under pressure. When he gets off his spot, can Miami cover on the back end, or can Sayin make him pay? That's going to be a big factor in this game. And on that back end, limiting explosives on the back end. So Miami is, you got to look at it in two different ways, right? In terms of explosives volume, so the amount of explosives they've given up through the air, Miami's 6th in the country. But if you're talking about 20 plus air yard pass plays, right? So it travels through the air 20 plus yards, 15.1 yards per attempt. They're 109th in the country. So what that means is when you go deep, which isn't often, probably because of the great pressure rate from those two edge rushers, so teams don't really get a lot of downfield throws against Miami. But when they do, you can hit some big plays against Miami's back end. Ohio State, best wide receiver room in the country. You know, that doesn't need to be said. You guys know Smitty and Tate, they're a mismatch against anyone. The only thing here is Sayin doesn't really go down over the top like that. Average depth of target 7.9. It's 95th in the country. He's more about intermediate throws. Smitty, Tate, and these other guys making plays with Yak and making those explosive plays, which is why they're 13th in the country in explosives. So over the top is going to be there for Ohio State. Is Sayin actually going to make him pay? Is he going to hit these throws, or is he going to attempt these throws? Because if he does, I think he's going to hit some of them in this game. And then finally, running game. Is Ohio State going to get some balance? I've talked about it before. I don't think Ohio State has a good running game, or I should say, I don't think they have a running back on roster right now that is of an Ohio State status, if that makes sense. They're not typical Ohio State running backs. This isn't Hendo and Quinshon Judkins. There's nothing like that on this team. To put another way, I think Ohio State will start the 2026 season with a running back that's not on the roster right now. They're going to the portal and getting somebody. They average as a team 4.5 yards per carry. That's fine. Low explosive rate though. They're 97th in the country. They hit no explosive plays on the ground. Against Indiana, which was a top run defense, 4th in the country, they had 58 yards rushing in that game. Miami's 7th in the country against the run. And they're legit. They've stopped everybody outside of, say, Kewan Jones from Louisville in a first half against Virginia Tech when Virginia Tech was on a heater, and they ran for about 170 in that first half. They finished the game with about 190, though, adjusted and completely shut them down. So this is a top-ranked rush defense. I just don't see Ohio State having balance in this game on the ground, getting that run offense going. If they do, you can forget about it. Miami will probably get blown out in this one if Ohio State has a lot of success on the ground. All right. So with all of that said, those are the different matchups in this game. What is going to be my prediction? So, as I said, Ohio State 10-point favorite. Again, it's dropping to 9.5 on some books. I'm catching it at 10, though. My model, I got Ohio State as an 8.5-point favorite. You guys know I'm all about game script, right? So how do I see this game going? First and foremost, as I was just talking about, balance. Is Ohio State going to have balance? I'm going to say no. I don't think Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball in this game. I think Miami's a legit run defense, a legit front seven that's going to shut down an Ohio State running game that might kind of get exposed in this game. People might say, well, wait a minute, these guys can't run the ball? Because this isn't Purdue, right? This isn't Rutgers. What you did against those teams doesn't matter. So now it's really about Julian Sayin hitting passes to Carnell Tate, to Smitty, and these other guys down the field. I think it's going to be there for them in this game. I think they're going to be able to hit some big plays over the top in this one, and you might see some Ohio State big plays through the air in this game. But on the flip side of that, I think Carson Beck is going to have time in this game. I do think that Miami is going to be able, if I was to pick a team that would have balance, I would say Miami might have a little more balance because I think Mark Fletcher is going to be able to run the ball to a degree in this one. I'm not talking about he's going for 175, but I think he's going to be able to keep the Ohio State defense honest. And because of that, I think this is going to be a close game. I don't know if Miami's going to outright win this game, but go ahead and give me the Canes with the plus 10. I think you're looking at a 4-quarter fight in this one. Pointing this out to you, Ohio State's 2 toughest tests this year. Beginning of the year against Texas, I don't put a lot of weight in opening games, but they beat them 14-7 at home. The last game of the year against Indiana, neutral site, they beat them 13-10. Miami's in that tier. They're not in Minnesota, Purdue, and Rutgers tier. So go ahead and give me the Canes with a plus 10. But anyways, that wraps it up. If you like the content, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that. As you're going to see more pick and prediction videos, I'll try to get them all in before these quarterfinal games kick off. Take care.